Many of the most powerful secret items in Elden Ring are not hidden in obscure corners, but are instead tied directly to the tragic backstories and forgotten legacies of the lands between's most prominent figures, predating the shattering itself. These relics, weapons forged in divine wars, talismans blessed by gods who would become monsters, incantations whispered by those who plotted regicide in shadow, they are not merely loot scattered across a broken world for you to stumble upon by chance or clever exploration. They are the physical remnants of a civilization that tore itself apart from within, each piece a fragment of memory preserved in steel and sorcery, in gold and blood, in wrought and unalloyed promise. When you find the blasphemous claw in the depths of Farum Azula, you are not simply acquiring a tool to parry a god. You are holding the last desperate gambit of a knight who dared to stand against the very concept of destined death. When you claim the sacred relic sword from the heart of the Elden Beast, you wield the instrument of Marika's own divine authority, the same power she used to shatter the very order she had spent millennia establishing. Every secret item in this game is a thread, and when you pull on one, you unravel not just a location or a boss encounter, but entire epochs of history, whole dynasties built on ambition and brought low by betrayal, loves that twisted into curses, and noble intentions that curdled into abominations that still wander the fog-choked ruins of what was once the greatest empire ever to exist beneath the Erd Tree's golden light. The lands between are not a world that simply broke. They are a world that was deliberately broken, shattered by the very demigods who were meant to be its eternal stewards, and the secret items you discover are the keys to understanding why each of them failed, why each of them fell, and why the world they left behind is a labyrinth of grief and madness, where even the ground itself remembers the wars fought upon it. This is not a story about finding hidden chests or solving environmental puzzles, though those elements exist and matter. This is a story about archaeology in a land where the past refuses to stay buried, where every ruin hums with the echoes of what transpired within its walls, where every weapon you pick up has drunk the blood of gods and their children, where every spell you learn was once the signature sorcery of a scholar who either ascended to greatness or descended into heresy, often both. The scale of what you are about to witness spans from the primordial age, when the crucible churned with chaotic life, when all things blended together in a glorious and terrifying unity before the concept of order even existed, through the rise of Queen Marika, the Eternal who seized godhood itself and imposed her golden order upon reality, bending the very laws of life and death to her will through the secret wars and hidden alliances that festered beneath the surface of that golden age. The marriage of Radagon to Renala that was both a peace treaty and a betrayal. The birth of demigod children who inherited not just power, but the fundamental contradictions of their parents' natures through the Night of Black Knives, when Rania orchestrated the death of Godwyn the Golden and set in motion the chain of events that would doom the world, through the shattering itself, when Marika broke the Elden Ring in an act of either despair or rebellion, and her demigod children went to war over the fragments, each claiming a great rune and using its power to carve out their own kingdoms of madness, through millennia's doomed crusade that ended with her blooming into a goddess of rot in the heart of Caelid and transforming an entire region into a festering hellscape, through Miquella's desperate attempts to cure his sister and his own curse, his creation of unalloyed gold, and his retreat into the Haligtree where he sealed himself in a cocoon to transcend his divine limitations, only to be stolen away by Mogs, who dragged the cocoon into his blood-soaked palace beneath the earth to birth a new dynasty in the name of the formless mother, through Rani's long game playing out across centuries as she murdered her own body to escape the control of the greater will and set herself on a path to usher in an age of stars that would free the world from the meddling of outer gods entirely, and finally to you, the tarnished, called back from beyond the fog after generations of exile, stripped of the Erd tree's grace, and then given it back, sent on a journey to collect the great runes and become Elden Lord. A journey that will take you through every stratum of this broken world's history, from the glittering capital of Leyndell, where the Golden Order still pretends to hold sway, to the nightmare realm of Caelid, where the ground itself is diseased, to the frozen peaks of the mountain tops of the giants, where Marika committed genocide to fuel her ascension, to the halig tree that Miquella grew as an alternative to the Erd tree, a haven for the rejected and the cursed, to the crumbling ruins of Farum Azula that exist outside of time itself, where the godskin duo still hunt in service to the gloam-eyed queen who once wielded destined death before Marika stole it and gave it to her shadow Malekith. And every secret item you find along this path is not just a reward for your persistence or your attention to detail. It is a piece of testimony, evidence in a trial where the defendants are all gods and demigods, and the crime is the destruction of an entire world. The weapons tell you who fought and how they fell. The armor sets reveal the allegiances and the betrayals. The talismans preserve the blessings and the curses that were bestowed upon heroes and villains alike. The spells and incantations are the very words of power that sorcerers and clerics use to reshape reality. And the key items, the simple objects that seem mundane until you read their descriptions, these are often the most devastating of all. A doll that contains the soul of a witch, a needle that can hold back the influence of outer gods, a medallion that grants access to a hidden lift, a letter that reveals a conspiracy, a torch that illuminates invisible pathways, each one a narrative bomb waiting to detonate in your understanding of what this world is and what it was. To understand any of it, to truly comprehend why the lands between are the way they are, why every region is a monument to a different flavor of divine failure. In the ancient past of the lands between, long before the golden radiance of the Erd tree illuminated the realm, there existed something far more primal, something that predated the very concept of order, as later civilizations would understand it. This was the age of the Crucible, an epic so distant that its true nature has been obscured by countless millennia, remembered now only through fragments of incantations, the design of ancient armor, and the bodies of those unfortunate enough to carry its mark in later, less understanding times. The Crucible itself was not a tree in the sense we might imagine today, not the towering golden beacon that would later dominate the skyline of the lands between. Instead, the Crucible represented the primordial form of the Erd tree, a churning wellspring of undifferentiated life energy from which all living things emerged without distinction or separation. Imagine, if you will, a state of existence where the boundaries between species, between plant and animal, between the divine and the mundane, simply did not exist in any meaningful way. This was the fundamental nature of the Crucible, a melting pot of creation where life itself was still finding its forms, still experimenting with the infinite possibilities of existence. During this primordial age, life in the lands between was once a single, unified entity. Every creature, every plant, every being that would later diverge into the countless species and races that populate the realm shared the same fundamental essence, drew from the same wellspring of power. There was no hierarchy of life, no distinction between blessed and cursed, between pure and impure. All things were equally part of the crucible's grand design, all things equally sacred in their connection to this ancient source. The very concept of separation, of one form of life being fundamentally different from another, had not yet taken hold in the collective consciousness of existence itself. From this churning mass of primordial energy, the great tree began to emerge, a physical manifestation of the crucible's power that would serve as the precursor to the golden Erd tree that later generations would worship. The great tree was not golden, not radiant in the way the Erd tree would become. Its power was more raw, more visceral, drawing directly from the ancient source of the crucible without the refinement or the order that would later be imposed upon it. This tree served as both a physical anchor for the crucible's energy and a symbol of the unified life that characterized this ancient age. Its roots reached deep into the very fabric of the lands between, while its branches stretched toward the heavens, connecting the earthly realm with whatever cosmic forces existed beyond mortal comprehension. The crucible did not simply exist as an abstract concept or a distant source of power. It manifested itself physically in the living beings of the lands between through what came to be known as aspects. These aspects took many forms: horns that curved from the skulls of otherwise humanoid beings, scales that covered flesh in patterns both beautiful and terrible, tails that extended from spines, wings that sprouted from backs, and countless other variations that blurred the lines between different forms of life. These were not mutations in the negative sense, not deformities or curses, as they would later be viewed. In the age of the crucible, these aspects were signs of the primordial power flowing through a being, physical manifestations of the undifferentiated life energy that connected all things to their ancient source. The ancient dragons dominated the lands between during this era, creatures of such immense power and majesty that they faced no true rivals for supremacy. Among these magnificent beings, Fortisax stood as a paragon of draconic might, a dragon whose mastery over red lightning would later become legendary, whose very presence commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Lanceax, another of the ancient dragons, possessed her own formidable powers, and these dragons did not simply exist as beasts or monsters. They were intelligent, sophisticated beings who understood the nature of the crucible and their place within its grand design. The ancient dragons predated the rise of the golden Erd tree by countless years, and their rule over the lands between was absolute. They were not tyrants in the traditional sense, but rather the apex of creation as it existed during the Crucible Age, the most perfect expression of the primordial power that flowed through all living things. In this ancient time, the first champions emerged to serve the primordial Erd tree, warriors who would become known as the Crucible Knights. These elite fighters wielded the aspects of the crucible itself, manifesting the primordial powers in combat in ways that would seem miraculous to later generations. The Crucible Knights were not merely skilled warriors who had trained in conventional martial arts. They were living conduits for the ancient power of the Crucible, able to call forth horns from their bodies, to gore their enemies, to breathe out streams of primordial energy that could devastate entire ranks of foes, to grow tails that could sweep through opponents with bone-crushing force. These knights represented the pinnacle of what mortal beings could achieve when fully embracing their connection to the crucible, when accepting the undifferentiated nature of life rather than trying to separate themselves from it. The armor worn by these crucible knights reflected their unique position as champions of the primordial Erd tree. The crucible axe helm, for instance, was adorned with imagery that celebrated the aspects they wielded, horns and scales worked into the metal in patterns that were both decorative and symbolic. This was not mere ornamentation, but a statement of faith, a declaration that the wearer embraced the primordial nature of life rather than rejecting it. The tree sentinel armor, worn by those who guarded the approaches to the great tree, similarly incorporated these ancient symbols, scales worked into the metal, horns rising from helmets. Every piece of equipment serving as a reminder of the crucible's power and the unified nature of all life. The crucible knights themselves were fierce beyond measure, warriors whose skill in battle was matched only by their devotion to the primordial Air tree. Their armor often incorporated the very aspects they wielded most frequently, with some knights bearing helmets that featured permanent horn-like protrusions, others wearing gauntlets covered in scale patterns that seemed to merge seamlessly with their own flesh. These were not separate pieces of equipment that could simply be removed. The line between the knight and their armor, between their mortal form and the aspects of the crucible they channeled, became blurred through years of service and constant exposure to the primordial energies they wielded. They fought with a savagery that reflected the raw, unrefined nature of the crucible itself, yet this savagery was tempered by a discipline and skill that made them perhaps the most formidable warriors the lands between had ever seen. It was during this ancient era that Godfrey, who would later become the first Elden Lord, was born. Even in his earliest days, Godfrey possessed a natural affinity for the crucible's power that set him apart from other warriors. This was not simply a matter of physical strength, though Godfrey's might was legendary even in his youth. Rather, Godfrey seemed to instinctively understand the primordial nature of the crucible, to embrace the aspects of unified life in a way that allowed him to channel its power with unprecedented effectiveness. His connection to the crucible would later prove crucial in the wars that would reshape the lands between. But even in this ancient age, those who witnessed his prowess recognized that something exceptional had emerged from the churning wellspring of primordial life. The incantations that allowed users to manifest the crucible's aspects would survive into later ages, though they would become increasingly rare and viewed with suspicion as the nature of the lands between changed. The aspects of the crucible incantations, such as breath, horns, and tail, are direct remnants of this primordial era. Prayers that call upon the ancient power to temporarily grant the caster the physical manifestations that were once common among all living things. When a user invokes the aspect of the crucible breath, they are not simply casting a spell in the conventional sense. They are reaching back through time to touch the primordial wellspring itself, allowing the undifferentiated life energy of the crucible to flow through them for a brief moment, manifesting as a devastating exhalation of pure primordial force. Similarly, the aspect of the crucible horns allows the caster to temporarily grow horns from their body and charge forward, goring enemies in a display of savage power that echoes the combat techniques of the ancient crucible knights. The aspect of the crucible tail incantation functions in much the same way, granting the user a temporary tail that can be swept in a wide arc to strike multiple enemies. These incantations are not mere imitations or pale shadows of the true power of the crucible. They are genuine connections to that ancient source, though the connection is necessarily brief and incomplete for those living in later ages who lack the natural affinity for primordial power that characterized beings of the Crucible Age. The fact that these incantations require significant faith to use effectively speaks to their nature as prayers rather than conventional magic, as appeals to an ancient power that predates the very concept of ordered reality. The primordial Erd tree, though not yet transformed into the golden beacon it would later become, began during this age to establish its dominance over the lands between. This was not a sudden conquest or a violent overthrow of existing powers. Rather, it was a gradual process by which the great tree became the spiritual center of the realm, the focal point around which all other forces oriented themselves. The ancient dragons, despite their immense power, seemed to recognize or at least accept the great tree's growing significance. Whether this was due to some understanding of cosmic order, some recognition that the crucible represented a fundamental force that even dragons could not oppose, or simply a pragmatic acceptance of reality, remains unclear. What is certain is that the great tree's influence spread throughout the lands between during this era, its roots both literal and metaphorical, extending into every corner of the realm. Perhaps most significant for understanding later developments in the history of the lands between is the status of omens during the Crucible Age. Those beings born with horns and other aspects of the Crucible, who would later be reviled and persecuted as cursed abominations, were initially seen as blessed during this primordial era. An omen child, born with horns curving from their skull or scales covering their skin, was not viewed as something to be hidden away in shame or subjected to cruel rituals of suppression. Instead, such a child was celebrated as a living connection to the primordial source of all life, as proof that the ancient power of the crucible still flowed through the bloodlines of the lands between. The aspects these omens bore were identical to those wielded by the honored crucible knights, identical to the manifestations that appeared on the armor of champions and heroes. There was no distinction, no hierarchy that placed some aspects above others or deemed certain manifestations acceptable while others were cursed. The crucible's influence during this age was truly widespread, shaping not just the beings that lived in the lands between, but the very landscape itself. The geography of the realm bore the marks of primordial power, with certain locations serving as particularly strong connection points to the crucible's energy. The patterns of life, the distribution of species, the flow of natural forces, all of these were determined by the underlying currents of undifferentiated life energy that emanated from the great tree and the crucible it represented. Creatures that would later be considered monsters or aberrations were simply part of the natural order during this age, no more strange or out of place than any other form of life. The concept of a natural form versus an unnatural one had not yet taken hold because the very premise of such a distinction contradicted the fundamental nature of the crucible. As the age of the crucible progressed, a hierarchical order began to emerge, though it was fundamentally different from the rigid structures that would characterize later eras. This hierarchy was not based on the rejection of the crucible's aspects or the elevation of certain pure forms above others. Rather, it was a recognition of different roles and functions within the unified whole of existence. The great tree stood at the spiritual center of this order, not as a tyrant or even as a conscious ruler, but as the physical manifestation of the primordial source from which all life flowed. The ancient dragons occupied positions of temporal power, their strength and wisdom making them the natural leaders of the realm. The crucible knights served as champions and protectors, their mastery of the aspects making them the defenders of the emerging order. and the common beings of the lands between, whether they bore obvious aspects or not, all shared in the fundamental connection to the crucible that united all life. This hierarchical order was organic rather than imposed, emerging naturally from the interactions between different beings and forces rather than being decreed from above. It was an order that still honored the primordial unity of all life, that still recognized the fundamental connection between all things through the crucible. The aspects that manifested in various beings were not seen as markers of status or worth, but simply a different expressions of the same underlying reality. A warrior who could manifest horns was not inherently superior to one who could manifest a tail or breathe primordial energy. They were simply different, each valuable in their own way, each contributing to the whole of existence in the lands between. Yet, even in this ancient age, the seeds of future change were being planted. The very existence of the great tree, as a focal point, as a center around which other forces oriented themselves, represented a move away from the pure, undifferentiated unity of the crucible towards something more structured, more ordered. The emergence of champions and hierarchies, even organic ones, suggested that the age of pure primordial unity was beginning to give way to something else. The lands between stood on the threshold of transformation, though none living during the Crucible Age could have predicted the profound changes that would reshape their world in the eras to come. From the wild, untamed era of the Crucible, we now advance forward into what scholars call the ancient past, specifically the dawn of the Golden Order itself, an epoch that would fundamentally reshape every aspect of existence in the lands between. This transformative period saw the rise of Queen Marika the Eternal, whose ascension to power marks perhaps the single most consequential turning point in the entire history of this realm. Marika's origins remain shrouded in mystery, though fragments of lore suggest she came from the lands of the Numen, a race of long-lived beings from outside the lands between. What we do know with certainty is that Marika was an Empyrean, a rare designation given to those who possess the potential to become vessels for an outer god. The greater will, that cosmic force which had sent the Elden Beast crashing into the world ages before, selected Marika from among all possible candidates to serve as its living conduit. Through this divine selection, Marika became the vessel through which the greater will would impose its order upon the chaotic world that had existed under the Crucible's influence. The mechanism of Marika's ascension involved her direct communion with the Elden Ring itself. The ring, which had been embedded within the nascent Erd tree since the Elden Beast's arrival, became bound to Marika's very being. She did not merely possess the Elden Ring, she became its living embodiment, her body serving as the physical anchor that held the fundamental laws of reality in place. This union between goddess and cosmic artifact gave birth to what would be known as the Golden Order, a rigid theological and metaphysical system that would govern every aspect of life, death, and rebirth in the lands between. With the establishment of the Golden Order, the Erd Tree itself underwent a dramatic transformation. No longer the wild, crucible-infused primordial tree of ages past, the Erd Tree began to flourish in a new form, its golden boughs reaching ever skyward, its roots delving deep into the earth to draw sustenance from the very essence of the Elden Ring. The tree became the visual and spiritual center of Marika's new world order, a beacon of grace that would shine across the entire realm. Grace itself, that golden light which guides the worthy and marks them as chosen, flowed from the Erd tree like sap, blessing those whom Marika deemed fit to receive it. To consolidate her divine authority with earthly power, Marika took as her consort a warrior of legendary prowess named Godfrey. Before his elevation, this champion was known as Huara Lu, a barbaric warrior of such ferocity that he was forced to take upon his back a beast regent named Serosh, a spectral lion whose presence served to temper Godfrey's savage bloodlust. Upon their union, Godfrey was granted the title of First Elden Lord, making him not merely a king, but the mortal counterpart to Marika's divine rule. Together, they would forge an empire from the fractured lands that had existed before. Godfrey's role was not merely ceremonial. Marika tasked him with a grand military campaign to bring all the disparate regions and peoples of the lands between under the Golden Order's dominion. To accomplish this monumental task, Godfrey assembled and led an army of warriors who would come to be known as the Tarnished, though at this time they were anything but the grace-forsaken exiles they would later become. These were Marika's chosen soldiers, blessed with her grace, and they waged a series of brutal wars of conquest that would last for generations. The giants of the mountaintops of the giants fell to Godfrey's might, their civilization reduced to ruins, and their fell god imprisoned. The Storm Lord of Stormvale was defeated. The ancient dynasties that had ruled various regions were toppled or bent to Marika's will. Through fire and sword, the Golden Order's supremacy was established across every corner of the known world. Yet even as Marika consolidated her power, threats to her divine rule emerged from unexpected quarters. Chief among these was the Gloam-Eyed Queen, also known as the Dusk-Eyed Queen, a mysterious figure who was herself an Empyrean. This rival deity commanded the power of destined death through the black flames of the Godskins, a cult of assassins who wielded the terrifying ability to permanently slay gods and immortals. The Godslayer's greatsword, a massive coiled blade imbued with black flame, served as the signature weapon of this cult, and the black flame incantations they employed could burn away the very essence of divine beings, reducing even gods to ash. The existence of the Gloam-Eyed Queen represented an existential threat to Marika's order. If destined death remained free and wielded by a rival power, then the immortality that Marika promised to her followers would be meaningless. The Golden Order's claim to eternal supremacy would be nothing more than empty words. To eliminate this threat, Marika turned to her most trusted protector, a being known as Malekith the Black Blade. Malekith was no ordinary warrior. He was Marika's shadow, a term that carries profound significance in the lore of Elden Ring. When an Empyrean is chosen by the Two Fingers, those enigmatic representatives of the greater will, they are assigned a shadow, a loyal protector bound to them by cosmic law. In Malekith's case, the bond ran even deeper, for he was Marika's half-brother, sharing blood ties that made his loyalty absolute. Malekith was a beast-like warrior of incomparable skill, and Marika charged him with the most critical mission of her reign, the defeat of the Gloam-Eyed Queen and the seizure of destined death itself. The confrontation between Malekith and the Gloam-Eyed Queen is not documented in detail, but the outcome reshaped the metaphysical laws of the world. Malekith emerged victorious, and in the aftermath of his triumph, he claimed the Rune of Death, that fundamental aspect of the Elden Ring which governed mortality and the natural end of all things. Rather than destroy this rune or return it to the Elden Ring where it might be accessed by others, Mariketh sealed it within his own body, binding destined death to his very flesh. The black blade he wielded, a weapon forged specifically for this purpose, became the only means by which true death could be inflicted upon the immortal. The sealing of the Rune of Death had immediate and far reaching consequences. With destined death removed from the natural order, those blessed by the Erd Tree and the Golden Order became effectively immortal. Demigods, those divine offspring of Marika, could no longer die in any permanent sense. When their bodies were slain, their souls would return to the Erd Tree, eventually to be reborn or to exist in a state of undeath. This immortality extended to others who basked in the Erd Tree's grace, creating a civilization where death had lost its finality. The dead would rise as those who live in death, spirits bound to the world, unable to pass on to whatever lay beyond. This perversion of the natural cycle would later be deemed a corruption, but in these early days, it was seen as a blessing, a gift from Queen Marika that elevated her followers above the mortal concerns that had plagued previous ages. During this golden age of her reign, Marika gave birth to her demigod children, beings of immense power who inherited aspects of her divine nature. Godwyn the Golden, her firstborn son with Godfrey, embodied the ideals of the Golden Order, a prince of such nobility and grace that he became the face of Marika's regime, beloved by all who served under the Erd Tree's light. Later, through means that remain theologically complex and somewhat paradoxical, Marika bore twin children named Michaela and Millennia. These two Empyreans were born afflicted with terrible curses, Michaela with eternal childhood, forever unable to age beyond his youthful form, and Millennia with the scarlet rot, a plague that consumed her from within and threatened to spread its corruption to all she touched. Despite these afflictions, or perhaps because of them, both Michaela and Millennia would grow to become among the most powerful and significant figures in the history of the lands between. Yet even as the Golden Order reached its zenith, contradictions and tensions began to emerge within Marika's system. The Crucible, that primordial source of life that had given birth to the original Erd Tree, became increasingly problematic for the new order. The aspects of the Crucible, those chaotic blessings that manifested as horns, wings, tails, and other bestial features, were now deemed heretical by the Golden Order's rigid theology. Those who bore the Crucible's marks were persecuted, driven to the margins of society. The Crucible Knights, who had once been honored warriors serving the Erd Tree in its earliest days, found their status diminished, their connection to the old ways now viewed with suspicion. The misbegotten, those creatures born with animalistic features that clearly marked them as products of the Crucible's influence, were enslaved and treated as little better than beasts. This suppression of the Crucible represented the Golden Order's attempt to impose perfect, static order upon a world that had once thrived on organic chaos and change. The most shocking development of this era came when Marika made a decision that stunned the entire realm. After Godfrey and his tarnished warriors had completed their conquest of the lands between, after they had shed their blood to establish the Golden Order's dominance over every rival power, Marika banished them. Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, was stripped of his grace, that golden blessing that marked him as chosen. The light faded from his eyes and from the eyes of all his warriors. They became tarnished, a term of derision that marked them as graceless, unworthy, cast out from the Erd Tree's light. Marika commanded them to leave the lands between entirely, to wander in the lands beyond the fog, to struggle and suffer and die as mortals do. The reasons for this banishment remain a subject of intense scholarly debate. Some interpret it as a pragmatic decision, Marika removing a warrior class that had grown too powerful and too accustomed to war in an age when she sought to establish peace. Others see it as a deeper theological statement, Marika deliberately creating a population of graceless warriors who would one day be called back to the lands between for some greater purpose. Indeed, in her own words, recorded in fragments of ancient text, Marika told the tarnished to flourish in their banishment, to grow strong through struggle, and to return one day to claim the Elden Ring. This suggests a long term plan, a scheme that would only come to fruition ages later, after events that Marika perhaps foresaw or intended to bring about. In the wake of Godfrey's banishment, a new figure rose to prominence in Marika's court. Radagon of the Golden Order was a champion of extraordinary ability, a warrior with flowing red hair who had distinguished himself in campaigns against the forces that opposed the Golden Order. Radagon led Marika's armies against the Carian royal family of Liurnia, the great sorcerers who commanded the power of the moon and the stars. Yet rather than crushing the Carians utterly, Radagon married Renala, the queen of the full moon, in a union that brought Liurnia into the Golden Order's fold through diplomacy rather than conquest. Through this marriage, Radagon fathered 3 children. Radon, a warrior of titanic strength who would learn gravity magic to continue riding his beloved horse, even as he grew to enormous size. Rykard, who would become a fearsome inquisitor, and later something far worse. And Rani, a daughter born as an Empyrean, possessing the same potential to serve as a vessel for an outer god that Marika herself had once held. The relationship between Radagon and Marika, however, was far stranger than a simple matter of a queen taking a new consort after banishing the old. In time, it would be revealed that Radagon and Marika were not merely married, they were the same being, 2 personalities or aspects inhabiting one divine form. When Marika called Radagon back from Liurnia, he left Renala heartbroken, returning to the capital of Leyndell to become Marika's second Elden Lord, or perhaps more accurately, to reunite with his other self. This metaphysical union, this duality within divinity, would have profound implications for the nature of the Golden Order itself and for the events that would eventually lead to the shattering. Throughout this era, the Black Knife Assassins, who would later become infamous for their role in triggering the cataclysm that ended the Age of Peace, had their origins in the shadows of Marika's reign. These assassins were Numen, the same race from which Marika herself had come, and they wielded daggers imbued with a fragment of destined death, somehow stolen or granted from Malekith's sealed rune. The connection between Marika and these assassins remains one of the most troubling mysteries of this period, suggesting that even in the height of the Golden Order's glory, the seeds of its destruction were being carefully planted. By the end of this epic, the Golden Order stood supreme, unchallenged, and seemingly eternal. The Erdtree's golden light blessed the land. Destined death was sealed away. The demigods, immortal and powerful, ruled over their various domains. Yet the very perfection of this order contained within it the tensions and contradictions that would eventually tear it apart. The suppression of the crucible, the banishment of the tarnished, the sealing of death itself, all of these decisions would have consequences that Marika perhaps anticipated or perhaps failed to foresee. The stage was now set for the events that would shatter this golden age and plunge the lands between into an era of war and chaos. With the Golden Order firmly established and Queen Marika's rule spreading across the lands between, the nascent empire soon turned its attention to the remaining independent powers that refused to bend the knee. In the centuries following Marika's ascension, during what historians call the Golden Order's zenith, one such power stood defiant in the misty lakes of Liurnia. The Carian royal family, ancient masters of glintstone sorcery, whose lineage predated even the greater will's influence in these lands. The Carian royal family had ruled Liurnia for untold generations, their authority rooted not in divine mandate, but in the mastery of glintstone sorcery, a form of magic drawn from the stars themselves. Glintstone sorcery, fundamentally different from the Golden Order's incantations, channeled the cosmic forces of the night sky, manipulating gravity, conjuring spectral blades, and bending reality through crystallized starlight. The Carians had perfected these arts over millennia, establishing the Raya Lucaria Academy as the premier institution of magical learning in all the lands between. Their knights fought not with faith, but with moonlight greatswords, weapons imbued with cold sorcery that could cleave through armor and flesh with equal ease. The family's seat of power, the Academy of Raya Lucaria, rose from an island in the center of Liurnia's vast lake, its spires reaching toward the heavens, as if to touch the very stars from which their power flowed. At the height of Carian power, one sorceress eclipsed all others in skill and authority. Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, emerged as not merely the matriarch of the royal family, but as perhaps the most accomplished practitioner of glintstone sorcery the world had ever seen. Her title referenced her unique connection to the full moon itself, a celestial body that in the cosmology of the lands between represented completeness, perfection, and the culmination of all lunar cycles. Where other sorcerers might channel fragments of starlight or glimpses of cosmic power, Renala commanded the full moon's radiance, bending its silvery light to her will. She wielded the Carian regal scepter, an ornate staff of unparalleled craftsmanship that served as both symbol of her queenship and as the most powerful sorcery catalyst ever created by Carian hands. The scepter, adorned with intricate metalwork and set with gleaming glintstone, amplified her already formidable magical abilities to godlike proportions. Under her rule, the Raya Lucaria Academy flourished, attracting scholars and mages from across the lands between who sought to study the secrets of the stars. The Golden Order, however, could not tolerate such an independent center of power. Queen Marika, ever expanding her empire's reach, viewed the Carians as both a threat and an opportunity. Their refusal to acknowledge the greater will's supremacy represented a philosophical challenge to the very foundations of the Golden Order. Moreover, their mastery of sorcery offered knowledge and power that could either strengthen or undermine Marika's rule, depending on whether they could be brought into the fold or needed to be crushed entirely. To resolve this question through force, Marika dispatched one of her most formidable champions, a warrior whose prowess in battle had already become legendary throughout the Golden Order's territories. Radagon of the Golden Order arrived in Liurnia at the head of a massive army, his red hair blazing like fire even in the mist-shrouded lands of the lakes. Radagon was no ordinary general. He embodied the martial ideals of the Golden Order, a warrior of exceptional skill who fought with both strength and intelligence, wielding incantations alongside his blade. His signature weapon, a colossal hammer that would later be reforged as the Marika's hammer, could shatter stone and bone with equal ease. But Radagon brought more than mere military might. He carried with him the Golden Order's absolute conviction, the unshakable belief that Marika's rule represented the only path to true order and prosperity. His mission was clear: bring the Carians to heel, by persuasion if possible, by conquest if necessary. What followed became known as the Liurnian Wars, a protracted conflict that would span years and test both sides to their limits. The wars were unlike any other campaign the Golden Order had waged. In previous conquests, the Golden Order's superior organization, divine backing, and overwhelming force had typically secured relatively swift victories. The Carians, however, proved far more resilient. Their mastery of sorcery allowed them to employ tactics the Golden Order had never encountered. Carian knights, mounted on spectral steeds and wielding moonlight greatswords, struck from the mist with devastating precision before vanishing back into the fog. Academy sorcerers rained comets from the sky, summoned gravitational anomalies that crushed entire battalions, and erected barriers of pure magic that conventional weapons could not breach. The very landscape of Liurnia favored the defenders, its countless lakes and waterways channeling invading forces into predictable paths where carrion ambushes waited. Radagon adapted to these challenges with characteristic brilliance. He studied the carrion's tactics, learned to predict their movements, and began developing countermeasures to their sorceries. He led from the front, his red hair unmistakable on the battlefield, inspiring his troops through personal example. Slowly, methodically, he pushed deeper into Liurnian territory, securing footholds and establishing supply lines. Yet for all his tactical acumen, he could not achieve a decisive victory. Renala herself occasionally took to the battlefield, and when the Queen of the Full Moon unleashed her full power, even Radagon's veterans broke and fled. She could summon the full moon itself to appear in the sky regardless of the time of day, bathing the battlefield in silver light that empowered her allies and blinded her enemies. Her sorceries could transform soldiers into helpless creatures, trap entire companies in spheres of gravitational force, or simply obliterate them with beams of concentrated moonlight. As the war dragged on, something unexpected occurred. Radagon and Renala, meeting repeatedly in battle and occasionally in parley, began to develop a mutual respect that gradually deepened into something more profound. Radagon, despite his unwavering loyalty to the Golden Order, found himself captivated by Renala's wisdom, her grace, and her absolute mastery of arts he had never fully understood. For her part, Renala recognized in Radagon not a mindless conqueror, but a thoughtful warrior who fought not for glory, but from genuine conviction. Their conversations during truces and negotiations revealed common ground. Both sought order in their own ways, both valued learning and refinement, and both carried the weight of leadership with a similar sense of duty. The wars ended not with a final battle, but with a wedding. Radagon of the Golden Order married Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, in a ceremony that united the martial might and divine authority of the Golden Order with the ancient wisdom and sorcerous power of the Carian royal family. The marriage was both a political masterstroke and, by all accounts, a genuine love match. The union brought immediate peace to Liurnia, with the Carian royal family maintaining considerable autonomy while acknowledging the Golden Order's overarching authority. The Raya Lucaria Academy remained independent in its scholarship, and glintstone sorcery was officially recognized as a legitimate practice alongside Golden Order incantations. Radagon himself took up residence in Liurnia, setting aside his hammer to study the very sorceries he had once fought against. He even began practicing them himself, becoming one of the few individuals to master both incantations and sorcery at the highest levels. From this union came 3 children, each born with the blood of both the Golden Order and the Carian royal family flowing through their veins. These were no ordinary offspring. As children of Radagon, who was himself closely connected to Queen Marika and the Elden Ring, they were born as demigods, beings of immense power who would each shape the future of the lands between in profound ways. The eldest, Rykard, inherited his father's imposing physical presence and his mother's intellectual curiosity, though his interests would eventually turn toward forbidden knowledge and blasphemous experimentation. Even in youth, Ricard displayed an insatiable appetite for understanding the world's hidden mechanisms, a trait that would ultimately lead him down a dark path. The second child, Radon, grew into a warrior of legendary proportions, literally and figuratively. He inherited Radagon's martial prowess, amplified to superhuman levels, growing to gigantic stature and becoming perhaps the mightiest warrior the lands between had ever seen. Yet he also studied gravitational sorcery from his mother's tradition, eventually mastering it so completely that he could hold the very stars in place through sheer force of will, a feat no other sorcerer had ever accomplished. The youngest child, however, would prove the most consequential. Rani the Witch, as she would later be known, inherited the full depth of her mother's sorceress talent combined with an intellect and ambition that may have exceeded even Renala's. From her earliest days, Rani displayed an affinity for the moon that rivaled her mother's, though her connection was to the dark moon rather than the full moon. The dark moon represented hidden knowledge, secrets, and the cold void between stars, a more mysterious and potentially dangerous aspect of lunar power. This connection manifested physically in the Dark Moon Greatsword, a legendary Carian blade that became associated with Rani's destiny from the moment of her birth. The sword, forged from moonlight given solid form and imbued with freezing cold that could extinguish even the warmest fires, was said to have appeared in the Carian armory on the night Rani was born, a sign that her fate would be extraordinary and perhaps terrible. During these years of peace and prosperity, Renala's authority as queen reached its zenith. She wielded the Carian regal scepter, not merely as a weapon, but as a symbol of the perfect union between political power and magical mastery. The scepter became synonymous with her rule, present at every state function, every important ritual, every demonstration of Carian might. Through it, she could perform feats of sorcery that left even the Academy's most learned scholars awestruck. She could rebirth individuals, fundamentally altering their very essence through a ritual that drew upon the amber egg Radagon had gifted her, a mysterious artifact connected to the Elden Ring itself. This power of rebirth would later become her obsession, but during these golden years, it represented the height of magical achievement, proof that sorcery could rival even the Golden Order's miracles. The three children, growing up in this unique environment, inherited aspects of both their parents' traditions in ways that created entirely new paths of power. They were encouraged to study both Golden Order fundamentals and Carian sorcery, to master both blade and spell, to understand both faith and reason. This hybrid upbringing produced individuals of exceptional capability, but also of divided loyalties and complex identities. They were Carian royalty, but also Golden Order demigods, children of the moon and children of the Erd Tree simultaneously. This duality would shape their choices in the conflicts to come. Then, without warning or adequate explanation, everything changed. Radagon abandoned Renala and the Carian royal family, departing Liurnia to return to Leyndell. The reasons for this abandonment remain shrouded in mystery and contradiction. What is known is that Queen Marika's first consort, Godfrey, had been banished from the lands between, along with his warriors, stripped of grace, and sent into exile. Marika required a new consort, and she chose Radagon, calling him back to the capital. Some scholars suggest that Radagon and Marika were always more closely connected than publicly acknowledged, perhaps even two aspects of the same being, making the summons impossible to refuse. Others propose that Radagon's sense of duty to the Golden Order ultimately outweighed his love for Renala, that when Marika commanded his return, his loyalty to the greater cause superseded his personal attachments. Regardless of the true reasons, the effect on Renala was catastrophic. The queen who had commanded the full moon, who had never been defeated in battle, who had united her people and secured their prosperity, was utterly broken by Radagon's departure. She retreated into the grand library of Raya Lucaria Academy, the institution's innermost sanctum, and withdrew from public life entirely. The Carian regal scepter, once wielded with such authority, now served only to channel her grief into endless repetitions of the rebirth ritual, attempting to recreate what she had lost. She clutched the amber egg Radagon had given her, the symbol of their union, and used its power to rebirth her students over and over, as if through this ritual she could somehow bring back the past or make sense of her abandonment. The Carian royal family's influence waned dramatically in the aftermath. Without Renala's active leadership and without Radagon's connection to the Golden Order, the family lost much of its political power. The academy itself fell into factionalism, with different schools of thought competing for dominance in the absence of clear royal direction. Yet despite her withdrawal and deterioration, Renala remained revered by her people. The students of Raya Lucaria, even those who had never seen her in her prime, spoke of her with awe and devotion. They protected her in her seclusion, ensuring that none could disturb her grief. The Carian knights, though diminished in number, maintained their vigil, their loyalty to the queen unshaken by time or circumstance. In the metaphysical realm, a vestige of Renala's power persisted. The remembrance of the full moon queen was created, a crystallized fragment of her essence that contained echoes of her greatest achievements. This remembrance, like those of other demigods, could be offered to the finger readers to access unique abilities and spells that Renala had perfected. Through it, one could learn Renala's full moon, a sorcery that summoned a projection of the celestial body itself to crash down upon enemies with devastating force, or Rani's dark moon, the spell her daughter had developed based on her mother's teachings, but attuned to the darker, colder aspects of lunar power. Renala possessed a great rune, though it functioned differently from those shattered from the Elden Ring during the later shattering. Her great rune represented not a fragment of the ring itself, but rather her status as a demigod by marriage and motherhood, her connection to the cosmic order through her union with Radagon and through her children. This great rune granted the power of rebirth, allowing its bearer to fundamentally reshape themselves, to redistribute their very essence, and remake their capabilities. It was a power of transformation and renewal, reflecting both Renala's mastery of the most advanced sorceries and the painful reality of her endless attempts to transform her grief into something bearable. The legacy of Radagon's time in Liurnia and his marriage to Renala would echo through all subsequent events in the lands between. The three demigod children would each play crucial roles in the conflicts to come, their hybrid nature making them uniquely powerful and uniquely conflicted. The union between Golden Order and Carian traditions, though politically dissolved, had created new forms of magic and new ways of understanding the world that could never be entirely undone. And Renala herself, broken but still revered, still powerful despite her grief, remained a living reminder of what had been lost when ambition and duty tore apart what love had built. And so, we arrive at the most pivotal and destructive era in the history of the lands between, the Shattering. This cataclysmic period, which we place in the recent past, fundamentally reshaped the world, leaving an indelible scar on the very fabric of existence and setting the stage for your own journey as the Tarnished. It was a time of unimaginable loss, fueled by grief, ambition, and the unraveling of divine order itself. The spark that ignited this inferno was the tragic death of Godwyn the Golden, a demigod of immense stature and beloved by many. His demise was not a natural one, nor was it a simple act of violence. It was an assassination, meticulously planned and executed, that had far reaching consequences, directly leading to the theft of death itself and subsequently the shattering of the Elden Ring. To understand the gravity of Godwyn's death, we must first delve into the mechanics of this unprecedented act. The very concept of true death had been removed from the lands between long ago by Queen Marika the Eternal, who sealed away the rune of death within her shadow, Malekith. Malekith, also known as the Black Blade, was not merely a loyal servant, but Marika's half-brother, bound to her by an unbreakable oath and tasked with safeguarding this ultimate power. He was a formidable warrior, wielding the very essence of destined death, ensuring that no one, not even the gods themselves, could truly perish. His role was to prevent the return of true death, maintaining the Golden Order's eternal reign. However, this divine safeguard was breached through a cunning and audacious plot orchestrated by Rani the Witch, another demigod, and her shadowy accomplices, the Black Knife Assassins. Rani, driven by her own mysterious agenda and a profound rejection of the Golden Order's tenets, sought to free herself from the fate dictated by the greater will. She believed that to achieve her goals, the established order had to be broken, and the most effective way to do this was to reintroduce true death into the world. Her plan involved stealing a fragment of the rune of death from Malekith. This was no easy feat, as Malekith was a guardian of unparalleled might, residing in the isolated and treacherous crumbling Farum Azula, a city frozen in time. The Black Knife Assassins, a cloaked order of female warriors, rumored to be Numen, the same ancient race as Marika herself, were instrumental in this heist. They were skilled in stealth and deadly in combat, and their unique blades, imbued with the stolen power, would become the instruments of a demigod's demise. The stolen rune of death, or rather a sliver of its power, was then used to imbue the Black Knives themselves. These daggers, now crackling with the forbidden essence of destined death, became weapons capable of inflicting a true and permanent end, a fate previously impossible for those touched by the grace of the Erd Tree. With these imbued blades, the Black Knife Assassins carried out their chilling mission, the assassination of Godwyn the Golden. The Night of the Black Knives was a night of infamy, a clandestine operation that shook the very foundations of the Golden Order. Godwyn the Golden, the firstborn son of Queen Marika, and Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, was the target. He was a paragon of chivalry, a revered figure, and his death was intended to be a symbolic strike against the established order. However, The assassination was not without its cruel twist. While Godwin's soul was slain, his body lived on, albeit in a grotesque and corrupted form. This partial death, a soul death without a body death, was a deliberate act by Rani, who herself underwent a similar ritual that night, dying in body but preserving her soul. The implications of Godwin's unique demise were profound. He became the Prince of Death, his decaying form spreading the creeping blight of the death root across the lands between, creating a macabre landscape of undeath and despair. This unholy existence, a mockery of true death, was a testament to the partial nature of the stolen rune of death, which could sever the soul but not fully extinguish the life force of a demigod. The news of Godwin's death and the horrifying manner in which it occurred plunged Queen Marika the Eternal into an unimaginable abyss of grief and incandescent rage. Her beloved son, the Golden Prince, had been cruelly taken from her, and the very concept of death had been reintroduced into her eternal realm. In her despair and fury, Marika committed the ultimate act of defiance and destruction. She shattered the Elden Ring. The Elden Ring, the very embodiment of the Golden Order and the fundamental laws of the world, was not a physical object in the traditional sense, but a conceptual construct, a divine runic order that governed all aspects of existence. Its shattering was not a mere breaking of a trinket, but a cosmic cataclysm that tore apart the very fabric of reality, unleashing chaos and instability across the lands between. With the Elden Ring shattered, its constituent great runes, powerful fragments embodying specific aspects of its divine order, were scattered. These great runes were claimed by Marika's demigod children, her offspring with both Godfrey and Radagon. Each demigod, inheriting a piece of the shattered divine power, became immensely powerful, their ambitions and inherent flaws amplified by the raw, untamed energy of the great runes. This newfound power, however, did not bring unity or peace. Instead, it fueled their individual desires for dominance, leading to an inevitable and devastating conflict. The demigods, now empowered by these fragments of the Elden Ring, began to wage war against each other in a desperate bid for supremacy. Each believed they had the rightful claim to become the next Elden Lord, to reforge the Elden Ring in their own image, and to establish a new order. This period of intense conflict became known as the Shattering. It was a war of unprecedented scale and brutality, involving vast armies, powerful magic, and the clash of demigod might. The lands between, once a realm of relative peace and prosperity under the Golden Order, were plunged into a devastating and protracted conflict. Countless lives were lost, entire regions were laid waste, and the land itself was scarred by the relentless fighting. The very earth groaned under the weight of this endless war, its beauty marred by the fires of ambition and the blood of fallen warriors. Among the most iconic and destructive battles of the Shattering was the cataclysmic confrontation between Millennia, the Blade of Miquella, and Star Scourge Radon. Millennia, an Empyrean and one of the most fearsome warriors in the lands between, was afflicted by the Scarlet Rot, a devastating and incurable disease that slowly consumed her body. Radon, a colossal demigod who had mastered gravity magic, was a force of nature, holding back the very stars themselves. Their clash in the desolate wastes of Caelid was legendary, a battle that shook the heavens and scorched the earth. In a desperate act, pushed to her limits, Millennia unleashed the full, unbridled power of the Scarlet Rot. This devastating explosion of decay not only crippled Radon, driving him mad and turning him into a monstrous shadow of his former self, but also transformed Caelid into a blighted wasteland, a testament to the horrifying destructive potential of the demigod's war. The scarlet rot, now unleashed, continued to spread, a festering wound on the land, a constant reminder of the Shattering's brutal legacy. The echoes of this devastating conflict permeated every corner of the lands between, and many powerful items became relics of this era. These artifacts, imbued with the raw emotions and immense power of the demigod's struggles, serve as tangible links to the events of the Shattering. They are not merely objects, but repositories of history, carrying the weight of past glories and tragedies. Consider, for instance, the remembrance of the Black Blade. This item is intrinsically tied to Malekith, the guardian of the Rune of Death, and the events surrounding Death's theft. It encapsulates the immense power and tragic fate of the demigod who failed to protect his sacred trust. The remembrance allows you to acquire weapons and spells directly linked to Malekith's power, including the Black Blade itself, a weapon infused with destined death. Similarly, the Godslayer's Greatsword is another relic deeply connected to the chaos unleashed by the Shattering. This massive blade, wielded by the Godskin Apostles, represents their ancient quest to slay gods. With the shattering of the Elden Ring and the subsequent weakening of the Divine Order, the Godskin Apostles, a fanatical cult devoted to consuming the gods themselves, saw their opportunity. The chaos of the Shattering reignited their ancient ambitions, and their greatsword, capable of inflicting black flame that burns away the very essence of life, became a potent symbol of their renewed crusade against the weakened divine entities. These items, and many others you will encounter, are not just tools, but narratives, each telling a piece of the Shattering story. As the Shattering raged, his destructive influence extended even to the very heart of the Golden Order, the Erd Tree. Once a resplendent symbol of prosperity, divine grace, and eternal life, the Erd Tree began to wither and burn. Its golden leaves, once vibrant and life-giving, turned brittle and fell, and its colossal trunk started to smolder, emitting an ominous, perpetual flame. This slow, agonizing decay of the Erd Tree was a direct reflection of the broken state of the Elden Ring. The cosmic order that sustained it had been shattered, and its life force was draining away, mirroring the despair and destruction that enveloped the lands between. The burning Erd Tree became a stark and undeniable symbol of the world's brokenness, a beacon of suffering that cast a long shadow over the entire realm. It was amidst this unprecedented chaos, with the lands between teetering on the brink of utter collapse, that a faint glimmer of hope emerged. The tarnished individuals who had once been exiled from the lands between and stripped of the Erd Tree's grace began to receive the guidance of grace once more. This mysterious call, a golden light visible only to them, beckoned them back to the ravaged lands. Their purpose, to mend the Elden Ring, to become the Elden Lord, and to restore order to a world consumed by madness and war. You, the player, are one of these tarnished, drawn back to a land scarred by the Shattering, destined to confront its legacy and forge a new future. The stage is set for your epic journey, a quest to understand the past, overcome the present, and ultimately to define the future of the lands between. The shattered world awaits its champion. As the echoes of the Shattering began to fade, giving way to a new era of fractured power and lingering despair, our timeline now brings us into a period known as the post-Shattering, specifically the devastating epic of the Rot's Scourge. This era is indelibly marked by the tragic fate of Millennia, Blade of Miquella, and the catastrophic consequences of her affliction. It was during this tumultuous time that Millennia, one of the most formidable demigods, succumbed to the virulent scarlet rot, an ancient and horrific disease that would forever scar the lands between. Her surrender to this blight, a desperate act of self preservation during a pivotal battle, unleashed a cataclysm that would transform entire regions and birth new, grotesque forms of life. The very air of Caelid, once a vibrant land, became thick with the pestilence, a testament to the rot's insatiable hunger. The pivotal moment of this tragic transformation occurred during Millennia's legendary clash with Star Scourge Radon, one of the mightiest demigods and a formidable warrior who had held the very stars in place. Their duel, a clash of titans that shook the foundations of the lands between, reached a brutal stalemate. Faced with defeat, and in a desperate bid to overcome Radon, Millennia unleashed the full, devastating power of the Scarlet Rot within her, manifesting in what is known as her first bloom of the Scarlet Ionia. This catastrophic explosion of rot energy, a beautiful yet horrifying spectacle, not only incapacitated Radon, but also irrevocably tainted the lands of Caelid. The sheer scale of this single act of desperation is difficult to overstate. It was a desperate gamble that saved her life, but at an unfathomable cost to the world around her. The immediate aftermath of this bloom was a scene of utter devastation, a landscape instantly transmuted by the malevolent essence of the outer god of rot. The Scarlet Rot, now unleashed without restraint, began its insidious work, transforming Caelid into a blighted wasteland, a twisted mockery of its former self. The once fertile plains and forests became a crimson-hued desert, choked with fungal growths, pulsating pustules, and the stench of decay. This wasn't merely environmental destruction. The rot actively corrupted life itself. Existing creatures were twisted into grotesque parodies, their bodies distended and their minds consumed by the plague. New, horrific life forms, born directly from the rot's influence, emerged from the festering soil. These abominations, such as the kindred of rot and the various fungal creatures that infest Caelid, are living testaments to the rot's creative and destructive power, each one a testament to the disease's ability to warp and redefine existence. The very concept of life in Caelid became synonymous with suffering and corruption, a constant struggle against an omnipresent, insidious force. Millennia's Great Rune, a shard of the shattered Elden Ring and a symbol of her demigod status, is a profound artifact that reflects her unique circumstances. Unlike other great runes, which often embody abstract concepts or the power of their wielders, Millennia's Great Rune is deeply imbued with the power of the Scarlet Rot itself. This isn't merely a passive connection, it is an active, almost symbiotic relationship. The rot is a part of her, and her Great Rune reflects this terrifying truth. Yet intertwined with this malefic power is her indomitable will, a force of spirit so immense that it allowed her to endure the rot's constant assault and even wield its destructive potential. Her will is what prevented the rot from completely consuming her, allowing her to retain a semblance of her former self, even as her body slowly succumbed. It is a testament to her strength that even in her most corrupted state, her spirit remains unbroken, a beacon of defiance against an ancient and overwhelming cosmic horror. Her signature weapon, the Hand of Millennia Katana, is more than just a finely crafted blade. It is a tangible manifestation of her unparalleled skill and the purity of her blade, a stark contrast to the corruption that ravaged her body. This weapon, renowned throughout the lands between, embodies her martial prowess, her elegant yet deadly fighting style, and the unwavering discipline that defined her as a warrior. Despite the rot's insidious spread through her limbs, her technique remained flawless, her strikes precise and lethal. The hand of Millennia is a symbol of her commitment to the blade, a testament to her dedication to her craft, and a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, her spirit as a warrior remained untainted. It is a weapon that speaks of a warrior who fought not just with strength, but with artistry and an unyielding commitment to her own path. Central to Millennia's story, and indeed to the broader narrative of this era, is her twin brother, Miquella. Miquella, a demigod of extraordinary intellect and compassion, was burdened by a curse of eternal youth, forever trapped in the body of a child. More importantly, he possessed a unique and potent ability, the power to compel affection, an innate charisma that drew all living things to him. Driven by an immense love for his sister and a profound desire to alleviate her suffering, Miquella dedicated himself to finding a cure for the scarlet rot. His efforts were not merely a personal quest, they were a testament to his benevolent nature and his unwavering devotion to his twin. He understood the immense pain and isolation the rot inflicted upon Millennia, and he sought to free her from its clutches, not just for her sake, but for the hope of a better world. In his relentless pursuit of a cure, and as a sanctuary for those ostracized by the rigid doctrines of the Golden Order, Miquella embarked on his most ambitious project, the creation of the Halig Tree. This colossal, mystical tree was envisioned as a haven, a place where all who were deemed unwanted in the lands between could find refuge and healing. It was a direct challenge to the Golden Order's exclusionary practices, a symbol of Miquella's compassionate vision for a more inclusive future. For Millennia, the Halig Tree was meant to be her ultimate sanctuary, a place where she could finally be free from the rot's relentless grip. Miquella believed that within the protective embrace of the Halig Tree, he could finally unravel the mysteries of the rot and bring about her healing, allowing her to live a life unburdened by the constant pain and decay. The Halig Tree itself is a marvel of both natural and arcane power, a testament to Miquella's incredible will and his unique ability to foster life and growth. Its branches reach towards the heavens, its roots delve deep into the earth, and within its heart, Miquella hoped to cultivate a new form of divinity, one that could transcend the limitations of the existing order. It was within the protective heart of this nascent Halig Tree that Miquella, in a profound act of self-sacrifice and transformation, ensconced himself within a massive cocoon. This wasn't merely a retreat, it was a deliberate and complex ritual, an attempt to grow into a true god, to shed the limitations of his cursed body and emerge as a being capable of truly curing the rot and reshaping the world. His slumber within the cocoon was a period of intense spiritual and physical metamorphosis, a desperate gamble to achieve a higher state of being. He sought to become a god, not through conquest or power, but through compassion and healing, a stark contrast to the established deities of the lands between. His ultimate goal was to become a benevolent deity, one who could not only cure Millennia, but also offer succor to all those afflicted by curses and societal rejection. The cocoon pulsed with nascent divine energy, a silent promise of the god Miquella was striving to become, a god of tenderness and universal acceptance. However, Michaela's ambitious endeavor was tragically interrupted by the malevolent actions of Mog, Lord of Blood. Mog, a demigod driven by a twisted ambition and a fervent devotion to an outer god known as the Formless Mother, harbored a perverse desire to establish his own dynasty, one founded on blood and depravity. He saw Michaela not as a sibling or a fellow demigod, but as a potential consort, a vessel through which he could elevate himself and his accursed bloodline. Driven by this dark lust and a desire for power, Mog, in a brazen act of abduction, tore Michaela from his sacred cocoon at the base of the Halleck tree. This act of violence not only shattered Michaela's transformative slumber, but also robbed the lands between of its greatest hope for a cure to the rot and a more compassionate world. The very sanctity of the Halleck tree was violated, its purpose twisted by Mog's depraved agenda. Having successfully abducted Michaela, Mog transported the still cocooned demigod to his grotesque stronghold, Mogwin Palace. This subterranean realm, steeped in the blood and rituals of the Formless Mother, became Michaela's unwilling prison. Here, Mog embarked on a relentless and horrifying campaign to awaken Michaela, not to free him, but to corrupt him and force him into a twisted union. He continually attempted to imbue Michaela with his accursed blood, hoping to transform the gentle demigod into a vessel for his own dark ambitions and the will of the Formless Mother. Mog's actions were a grotesque parody of Michaela's own desire for transformation, a perversion of love and devotion into a dark, controlling obsession. He sought to bend Michaela's immense power to his own will, to create a new dynasty founded on blood and fear, with Michaela as his unwilling, corrupted consort. The constant infusion of Mog's blood, a vile and corrupting essence, was meant to break Michaela's will and force him to emerge from his cocoon as a blood-soaked deity, a twisted reflection of the compassionate god he had striven to become. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Michaela's plight, Millennia, upon awakening from her own rot-induced slumber, began her arduous journey. Her singular focus, her driving purpose, was to find her beloved brother. The devastation of Kaled and her own weakened state did not deter her. Her bond with Michaela was absolute, an unbreakable tether that pulled her towards him. She traversed the treacherous and corrupted lands, her path a testament to her unwavering determination. Her journey was not one of conquest, but of desperate longing, a sister seeking her lost twin. She was driven by an instinctual understanding that something was amiss, a void left by Michaela's absence, a silent alarm bell ringing in her heart. Every step was a struggle against the rot within her, yet her resolve to reunite with her brother fueled her onward, a relentless pursuit born of profound sibling love. Her journey eventually led her to the Halleck tree, the very sanctuary Michaela had created for her and for all outcasts. Upon arriving and finding the cocoon empty, Millennia, still unaware of Mog's heinous abduction, established herself at the very bottom of the Halleck tree. Here, amidst the roots and the nascent life of the great tree, she patiently awaited Michaela's return. Her wait was a poignant tableau of hope and ignorance, a powerful demigod, weakened by disease, yet resolute as in her vigil. She believed he was still undergoing his transformation, that he would eventually emerge from his cocoon, ready to finally cure her and bring about the benevolent future he had envisioned. Her presence at the heart of the Halleck tree was a silent promise, a sentinel guarding the hope of Michaela's return, a poignant symbol of her unwavering faith in her twin. She remained there, a guardian of a hope that had already been brutally snatched away, a tragic figure patiently waiting for a reunion that would never come naturally. To protect this sacred, yet now vulnerable sanctuary, and to ensure Michaela's eventual return, Millennia's loyal Cleanroot Knights stood guard over the Haligtree. These knights, once proud warriors, had chosen to follow Millennia into the embrace of the rot, their bodies slowly succumbing to its corruption, yet their loyalty remained absolute. They fought tirelessly against the encroaching rot, a constant battle against the very disease that afflicted their mistress, and against any other threats that dared to approach the Haligtree. Their unwavering dedication is a testament to Millennia's leadership and the profound respect she commanded. They were her eyes and ears, her shield against the outside world, their corroded armor a symbol of their sacrifice and their unyielding devotion. Their presence ensured that the Haligtree, even in Michaela's absence, remained a bastion against the chaos of the lands between, a testament to the enduring power of loyalty and sacrifice in a world consumed by strife. Finally, for those brave tarnished who dare to challenge Millennia and ultimately defeat her, a profound artifact is acquired, the remembrance of the wrought goddess. This powerful item, imbued with the very essence of Millennia's being, allows the tarnished to acquire her unique items and spells. Through this remembrance, the tarnished can wield the hand of Millennia, her iconic katana, or learn the devastating Scarlet Aeonia incantation, a spell that replicates the very bloom that devastated Caelid. It is a tangible link to her power, her suffering, and her indomitable will. The remembrance serves as a final, bittersweet legacy of a demigod who, despite her immense power and tragic affliction, fought with unwavering resolve and an unbreakable spirit. It is a reminder of the sheer force of will that allowed her to endure the rot for so long, and a testament to the destructive beauty of her power, a power born from both immense suffering and unyielding defiance. Following the cataclysmic events of the Shattering, as the lands between plunged into an age of fractured power and burgeoning chaos, a new, sinister ambition began to take root in the hidden depths. It is in this tumultuous post-Shattering era, specifically during what would become known as the Bloodlord's reign, that our next chapter unfolds. While other demigods squabbled over dwindling remnants of the Golden Order or retreated into isolated madness, Mog, Lord of Blood, an Omen demigod and one of Marika's children, began to meticulously lay the groundwork for his own twisted dynasty. He established his dominion in the labyrinthine expanse of Mogwin Palace, a vast subterranean realm concealed beneath the blighted lands of Caelid. This was no mere territorial claim. Mog was driven by the insidious whispers and promises of an outer god, a cosmic entity known as the Formless Mother. This entity, unlike the Greater Will, which sought order and stability, reveled in primordial bloodlust and the raw, untamed power of creation through violence. The Formless Mother, a being of pure, unadulterated passion and primordial chaos, had chosen Mog as her vessel, her prophet, her champion. Her influence, a palpable corrupting force, seeped into his very being, transforming his Omen heritage, once a mark of shame and ostracization, into a source of immense terrifying power. Mog, now utterly consumed by the Formless Mother's vision, harbored a singular, blasphemous ambition to establish a new order, a bloody, visceral dominion where he and Michaela, both Empyreans, would ascend to godhood. Empyreans, for context, are individuals chosen by the Greater Will, or in this case, another outer god, with the potential to become a true god, to inherit the mantle of Marika herself. Mog, despite his Omen lineage, possessed this rare quality, and he saw in Michaela, Marika's other Empyrean child, the perfect consort, a divine counterpart to solidify his unholy reign. His plan was audacious, sacrilegious even by the standards of the shattered Golden Order. He envisioned a world steeped in blood flame, a new era where the formless mother's chaotic embrace would supplant the rigid dogma of the past. To achieve this, Mogg undertook a daring and profoundly disturbing act. He abducted Michaela from the sanctuary of the Haligtree. Michaela, the twin of Millennia and a being of unparalleled beauty and compassion, had retreated into a massive cocoon within the Haligtree, attempting to cure Millennia's scarlet rot and to achieve his own full godhood. This act of abduction was not merely a physical snatching, it was a violation of Michaela's sacred quest, a brutal interruption of his divine slumber. Mogg's intention was clear. He sought to raise Michaela to godhood, not as the benevolent, unalloyed deity Michaela aspired to be, but as his own consort, the new god of the Mogwin dynasty, bound to the formless mother's will and Mogg's own bloody ambition. This was a forced marriage of divine power, a perversion of Michaela's pure nature for Mogg's own dark ends. Within the opulent, yet unsettling confines of Mogwin Palace, Michaela remained in his cocoon, a silent, unmoving testament to Mogg's grand, horrific design. The cocoon, a symbol of nascent divinity, now lay dormant, its occupant in a state of profound slumber, of forced stasis. Michaela's awakening was not just crucial to Mogg's plans, it was the very cornerstone upon which the Mogwin dynasty was to be built. Mogg believed that by nurturing Michaela with the formless mother's power, he could hasten Michaela's transformation, bending his divine will to serve the bloody cause. The exact nature of Michaela's slumber is a matter of much debate among scholars of the lands between. Was it a self-imposed coma to resist Mogg's influence? Or was it a consequence of the abduction itself, a state of shock and spiritual withdrawal? Regardless, Michaela's inert form, encased in its golden shell, represented both Mogg's greatest hope and his most significant obstacle. Mogg, in his relentless pursuit of this twisted apotheosis, constantly utilized his blood flame incantations. These powerful crimson-hued spells, granted directly by the formless mother, were not merely tools of destruction, they were instruments of corruption and forced growth. He would ritualistically drench Michaela's cocoon in this unholy flame, hoping to infuse it with the formless mother's essence to accelerate Michaela's emergence as a blood god. However, Michaela's inherent purity, his unalloyed gold, proved to be a formidable, albeit passive, resistance. The unalloyed gold, a material imbued with Michaela's divine grace and his unwavering compassion, acted as a spiritual barrier, a shield against the formless mother's corrupting influence. It repelled the blood flame, preventing it from fully permeating Michaela's essence. This resistance was a subtle yet profound act of defiance, a testament to Michaela's enduring will even in slumber. The blood flame would lick at the surface of the cocoon, leaving behind crimson stains, but it could not penetrate the core of Michaela's being. This ongoing struggle, a silent war of divine wills, played out within the very heart of Mogwin Palace, unseen by all but Mogg himself. As a tarnished, your journey through the lands between will inevitably lead you to Mogwin Palace, and there you will encounter the terrifying embodiment of Mogg's power, Mogwin's sacred spear. This formidable weapon, a trident-like polearm, is not merely a piece of metal. It is a conduit for the formless mother's raw power, imbued with her blood flame. When Mogg wields it, The spear crackles with malevolent energy, leaving trails of crimson fire in its wake. Each thrust, each sweep, is a testament to the outer god's influence, a physical manifestation of the blood flame's destructive and corrupting potential. The spear's unique abilities, such as its capacity to inflict the blood loss status effect and its signature skill, Blood Boon Ritual, make it a truly fearsome weapon, one that speaks volumes about the depths of Mog's devotion to his patron deity. Its very existence is a chilling reminder of the Formless Mother's insidious reach and Mog's willingness to embrace such unholy power. Upon your eventual, climactic confrontation with Mog, Lord of Blood, and his subsequent defeat, a crucial item will be bestowed upon you: the remembrance of the Blood Lord. This item, like all remembrances, is a crystallized memory, a fragment of a demigod's essence and their grandest ambitions. The remembrance of the Blood Lord vividly details Mog's relentless ambition, his fervent desire to establish the Mogwin dynasty, and his profound, unyielding connection to the Formless Mother. It speaks of his conviction that the Golden Order was a flawed, decaying system, and that only through the cleansing fire of blood flame could a true, glorious age be ushered in. It paints a picture of a demigod who, though an omen and therefore an outcast, found solace and purpose in the embrace of a primal, chaotic god. The remembrance also alludes to the Formless Mother's whispers, her promises of ultimate power and a new world order, which fueled Mog's every action. It is a testament to the seductive power of outer gods and the lengths to which individuals will go when offered a path to ultimate dominion. Mog's influence extended far beyond his personal ambition. He cultivated a fanatical following, an army of devoted adherents who shared his vision of a blood-soaked future. These followers, known as the Bloodfingers and Blood Priests, were utterly devoted to Mog and, by extension, to the Formless Mother. They were his instruments, his enforcers, and his most fervent worshippers. Their devotion was absolute, their loyalty unwavering, fueled by the promise of power and a place in the coming Mogwin dynasty. A distinctive, chilling feature of these followers is their attire. Many of them wear distinctive white masks. These masks, often adorned with bloodstains or crude, unsettling designs, served as a symbol of their allegiance, a uniform for the coming bloody revolution. They represented a rejection of their former identities, a complete surrender to the Formless Mother's will and Mog's leadership. The white mask, in this context, becomes a symbol of anonymity and collective fanaticism, a chilling visual representation of their shared violent purpose. Among Mog's most loyal and brutal followers were those who donned the white mask and the full war surgeon set. These individuals were not mere foot soldiers. They were the elite, the chosen few who engaged in the most gruesome blood rituals and the most savage combat. The war surgeon set, with its tattered, blood-soaked garments and menacing, often skeletal masks, speaks volumes about the nature of their service. They were not healers, but rather practitioners of a dark, surgical art, dissecting life and limb in the name of the Formless Mother. Their rituals often involved the spilling of blood, not just as an act of sacrifice, but as a means of drawing power from the Formless Mother, of communing with her primal essence. These war surgeons were the architects of Mog's terror, the ones who ensured that his will was carried out with maximum brutality and efficiency. They embodied the very essence of the Mogwin dynasty's ethos: power through blood, dominion through sacrifice. Their presence on the battlefield was a chilling harbinger of the Blood Flame's embrace, a testament to the depths of depravity to which Mog's influence could lead. Another notable figure associated with Mog's machinations is Eleonara Violet Bloodyfinger. She wields a unique, heavy thrusting sword known as the Bloody Hellas. Eleonara is not merely a follower, she is an invader, a harbinger of Mug's will who actively seeks out and confronts the Tarnished in various locations across the lands between. Her invasions are not random acts of aggression. They are calculated attempts to eliminate potential threats to the Mogwin dynasty, to spread the terror of the Formless Mother, and to gather blood for her rituals. The Bloody Hellas itself is a testament to the unique craftsmanship and blood imbued power of Mog's followers. Its spiraling design and inherent ability to inflict blood loss reflect the Formless Mother's chaotic yet potent influence. Eleonara's presence, her relentless pursuit of the Tarnished, underscores the reach of Mog's ambition and the dedication of his most formidable agents. She is a living, breathing testament to the deadly effectiveness of the Bloody Fingers and their unwavering commitment to their bloodlord. Mog, as an Empyrean and a child of Marika, possessed a great rune, a fragment of the Elden Ring's power. His great rune, like those of his demigod siblings, was a testament to his immense power and his royal lineage. However, unlike the great runes of Godric or Radon, Mog's was considered a cursed great rune. This designation stems from its inherent connection to the Formless Mother and the dark, blood-soaked power it represented. While other great runes might embody aspects of creation, order, or strength, Mog's great rune pulsed with the raw, chaotic energy of Bloodflame, a power that sought to corrupt and destroy rather than to build or maintain. It was a symbol of his rejection of the Golden Order and his embrace of a more primal, destructive force. The cursed nature of his great rune further solidified his status as an outcast, even among the fractured demigods. It was a mark of his unique, terrifying power, a power that the Tarnished would ultimately have to confront and overcome. As the Tarnished delves deeper into the hidden realms of Mogwin Palace, they will eventually discover the Mogwin Dynasty Mausoleum. This grand, imposing structure is the heart of Mog's dominion, the physical manifestation of his ambition. Within its cavernous depths, the true scale of his blasphemous plans becomes terrifyingly clear. Here, the Tarnished will find Mog's ornate throne, a seat of power carved from dark stone and adorned with symbols of blood and sacrifice. And most importantly, here lies Miquella's cocoon, a luminous golden shell pulsating with a faint, otherworldly light, a stark contrast to the surrounding darkness and blood flame. The mausoleum is not just a throne room, it's a sacred space for Mog, a temple dedicated to the Formless Mother and the future Mogwin dynasty. It is a place where rituals are performed, where power is consolidated, and where the destiny of the lands between, as Mog envisions it, is being forged. The very architecture of the mausoleum speaks of ancient forbidden rites and a chilling reverence for the primal forces that Mog serves. During the final confrontation with Mog, Lord of Blood, within the Mogwin Dynasty Mausoleum, the Tarnished will witness the full terrifying extent of his devotion to the Formless Mother. Mog will perform the Blood Boon Ritual, a powerful and devastating incantation that transforms the very arena into a maelstrom of blood flame. This ritual is not merely an attack, it is a profound act of worship, a direct communion with the Formless Mother. As Mog chants, the air crackles with malevolent energy, and geysers of crimson fire erupt from the ground, drenching the battlefield in a scorching, corrupting inferno. The Bloodboon ritual is a testament to the Formless Mother's destructive power and Mog's complete mastery over her gifts. It is a desperate, final attempt to overwhelm the Tarnished, to prove the supremacy of the Mugwin dynasty, and to ensure Miquella's eventual awakening as a blood god. The sheer spectacle of the ritual, its raw power and terrifying beauty, leaves no doubt as to the depth of Mog's fanaticism and the immense power he wields through the Formless Mother. Ultimately, the Tarnished's journey culminates in the defeat of Mog, Lord of Blood. This climactic victory within the Mogwin Dynasty Mausoleum marks the definitive end of his reign, and more importantly, the collapse of his ambition to establish the Mogwin Dynasty. With Mog's demise, the immediate threat of Miquella's forced transformation into a blood god is averted, at least for now. The Formless Mother's direct influence within the lands between is significantly curtailed, though her presence, like all outer gods, lingers as a subtle underlying current. The defeat of Mog is a significant turning point in the post-Shattering era, a moment where one of the most dangerous and blasphemous threats to the lands between is neutralized. While the fate of Miquella's cocoon remains an open question, and the Formless Mother's whispers may yet find new champions, Mog's dream of a blood-soaked dynasty, ruled by him and his unwilling consort, is shattered, leaving behind only the lingering echoes of his ambition and the crimson stains of his unholy rituals. The lands between breathes a collective, albeit silent, sigh of relief, as one of its most terrifying demigods falls, paving the way for new possibilities and new challenges for the Tarnished. Moving from the profound mystery of the Shattering's immediate aftermath, we now shift our focus to a pivotal period in the post-Shattering era, specifically Rani's plot, a meticulously orchestrated conspiracy that would irrevocably alter the fate of the lands between. This is the timeline entry where the very fabric of destiny is rewoven through cunning and sacrifice, all in pursuit of a new cosmic order. At the heart of this intricate web of machinations stands Rani the Witch, an Empyrean daughter of Queen Marika and Radagon. Rani, dissatisfied with the Greater Will's dominion and the Golden Order's rigid control, sought to usher in an entirely new epoch, the Age of Stars. Her ambition was grand, demanding actions of unimaginable consequence. It was Rani who orchestrated the infamous Night of Black Knives, an event that sent shockwaves across the lands between. This clandestine operation saw the Black Knife assassins, shadowy figures imbued with a fragment of the Rune of Death, strike down Godwyn the Golden. Godwyn, beloved demigod and son of Marika, suffered a unique fate. His soul was assassinated, leaving his body intact but lifeless. This partial death of a soul without a body would later contribute to the unsettling phenomenon of those who live in death, a blight upon the lands between. But Godwyn's demise was only half of Rani's equation. In a parallel act of self-sacrifice, Rani also allowed her own Empyrean flesh to be slain on the same night. This was a crucial step in her plan to break free from the Greater Will's influence, as Empyreans are chosen by the Two Fingers to potentially succeed Marika as a god, a destiny Rani vehemently rejected. By shedding her physical form, she defied the very mechanism of the Greater Will's succession. Following this cataclysmic night, Rani cast aside her great rune, a shard of the Elden Ring that had been bestowed upon her as an Empyrean. This act further severed her ties to the Golden Order and its established power structures. What remained of Rani was not flesh and blood, but a spirit eternally bound to a doll-like form. This four-armed puppet, reminiscent of her mentor and mother figure. The Snow Witch Renna became her new vessel, a tangible representation of her ethereal existence. This doll, often seen perched at Rani's rise, served as her primary means of interaction with the physical world, a silent testament to her radical choice. The success of Rani's plot hinged on a critical element: the theft of a fragment of the Rune of Death. This powerful rune, once whole, governed life and death within the Elden Ring. Marika, in her wisdom, or perhaps her own defiance, had entrusted a portion of this rune to the Black Knife assassins. It was this stolen fragment, imbued with the power of destined death, that allowed the assassins to achieve the impossible, the slaying of a demigod's soul. The precise motivations behind Marika's involvement remain shrouded in mystery, but her actions undeniably facilitated Rani's grand scheme, suggesting a deeper, perhaps even complicit, role in the unraveling of the Golden Order. The fragment's power was not merely for assassination, it was a tool for liberation, a means to break the chains of fate imposed by the greater will. It is in this fractured, post-shattering world that you, the Tarnished, a warrior guided by grace, first encounter Rani. Your initial meeting is spectral, a fleeting vision at the Church of Ella, a ruined sanctuary where the echoes of ancient faith still linger. Here, in the quiet solitude of the church, Rani appears as a shimmering blue apparition, a mysterious figure who bestows upon you the spirit-calling bell. This invaluable item allows you to summon spirit ashes, spectral allies who can aid you in your perilous journey through the lands between. This seemingly innocuous gift is, in retrospect, Rani's subtle first outreach, a test of your potential and an early indication of her awareness of your burgeoning power as a Tarnished. She recognizes something within you, a spark of defiance or destiny that aligns with her own objectives. Your path eventually leads you to Rani's Rise, a towering structure nestled within the mystical region of Liurnia of the Lakes. This is where the true alliance begins. Here, you pledge your service to Rani, formally joining her inner circle. This coterie of loyal companions includes Iji, the colossal war counselor, a gentle giant whose wisdom and smithing skills are invaluable. Blad, the loyal half-wolf, Rani's shadow and protector, and Celavis, the conniving sorcerer, whose true allegiances are always questionable. Each of these characters plays a vital role in Rani's overarching plan, their individual skills and knowledge contributing to the complex tapestry of her ambitions. Your presence within this circle signifies a deepening commitment to her cause, a willingness to challenge the established order. Rani's first major task for you, the Tarnished, is to find the hidden treasure of Nokron, the Eternal City. Nokron, a city lost to time and buried beneath the earth, holds secrets vital to Rani's quest. This ancient civilization, once a vibrant hub of astrologian knowledge and advanced sorcery, was cast into eternal night by the Greater Will, punished for its defiance and its pursuit of a lord other than the Greater Will. The treasure she seeks is not merely gold or jewels, but an artifact of immense power that will aid her in breaking free from the Greater Will's suffocating influence. The journey to Nokron is fraught with peril, requiring you to navigate treacherous landscapes and overcome formidable foes, each step a testament to your growing strength and dedication to Rani. However, access to Nokron is not straightforward. The Eternal City is sealed beneath the earth, its path obscured by a cosmic barrier. This barrier is maintained by Star Scourge Radon, one of the most powerful demigods, and a son of Radagon and Renala. Radon, driven mad by the scarlet rot, had used gravity magic to halt the very stars in their courses, preventing them from falling and thus keeping Nokron hidden. Your pivotal role in Rani's plan becomes clear. You must defeat Radon. The battle against Radon is an epic confrontation, a testament to the raw power of the demigods and the sheer determination of the Tarnished. His defeat is not just a personal triumph, it is a cosmic event. With Radhan vanquished, the stars are freed, resuming their celestial dance. This seismic shift in the heavens causes a star to fall, tearing open a gaping chasm in the lands between, a direct pathway leading to the long lost depths of Nokron. With the path revealed, you venture into the subterranean wonders of Nokron, a city bathed in perpetual moonlight, its ruins whispering tales of a forgotten era. After navigating its labyrinthine passages and overcoming its spectral guardians, you retrieve the Fingerslayer blade. This unique weapon, crafted from the very essence of a two fingers, is a symbol of profound defiance. It is not a weapon to be wielded in battle, but a ceremonial tool, a declaration of independence from the greater will and its emissaries. Presenting this blade to Rani is a momentous occasion. It signifies her definitive break from the two fingers, the silent, towering entities that serve as conduits for the greater will's directives. The Fingerslayer blade represents the ultimate rejection of her preordained destiny as an Empyrean chosen by the greater will. Having achieved this critical milestone, Rani makes her next move. She abandons her own two fingers, leaving them lifeless and inert in her chamber within Rani's rise. This act is a powerful statement, a final severing of ties. With her mission in Liurnia complete, Rani departs from Rani's rise, leaving behind only a miniature doll of herself. This doll, a smaller, more portable version of her usual vessel, is a clue, a breadcrumb trail for you to follow. It signifies her continued trust in you, an invitation to join her on the next leg of her transformative journey. Your pursuit of Rani's doll form leads you into the treacherous depths of the Ansul River. This underground region, a sprawling network of caverns and ancient ruins, is home to strange creatures and otherworldly phenomena. Here, you discover the miniature doll, and through a unique interaction, you are able to communicate with Rani's spirit, now residing within this smaller effigy. This period of the quest is deeply personal, a direct line of communication with Rani as she guides you through the subterranean world. The journey continues through the perilous Lake of Rot, a vast expanse of scarlet corruption, a testament to the devastating power of the outer gods. Navigating this toxic environment, you remain steadfast in your commitment to Rani, your resolve unwavering even in the face of such profound danger. As Rani's journey progresses, a formidable obstacle emerges, a creature of cosmic horror that guards the path to her ultimate destination. This is Astal, natural born of the void, a grotesque entity that descended from the stars, a manifestation of the outer god's influence. The remembrance of Astal, natural born of the void, a powerful item obtained upon its defeat, is intrinsically tied to this pivotal encounter. Astal stands as the final guardian of the path to the Moonlight Altar, a sacred location where Rani intends to complete her ritual. Its presence underscores the immense power opposing Rani's ambitions, a cosmic force attempting to thwart her bid for freedom. Your triumph over Astal, natural born of the void, is a testament to your unwavering strength and your dedication to Rani's cause. With Astal defeated, The path to the Moonlight Altar is finally clear. This ethereal plateau, bathed in the soft glow of the moon, is where Rani awaits, ready to enact the final stages of her grand design. Here, under the watchful eye of the cosmos, Rani reveals her true intentions and the profound significance of your journey together. As a culmination of your shared quest and a symbol of your unbreakable covenant, Rani bestows upon you the Dark Moon Greatsword. This legendary weapon, crackling with icy magic and imbued with the power of the Dark Moon, is not merely a tool for combat. It is a sacred artifact, a testament to Rani's trust and the bond forged between you. The Dark Moon Greatsword is a direct link to the age of stars she seeks to usher in, a weapon of cosmic power that reflects the profound shift in the lands between's future. Its acquisition marks the deepest point of your alliance, a tangible representation of your shared destiny. Throughout this entire saga, Rani's iconic attire, the Snow Witch set, plays a crucial symbolic role. Worn by her doll form, this distinctive ensemble of a wide brimmed hat, flowing robes, and intricate details is more than just clothing. It represents her identity, her connection to the Snow Witch Renna, and her unwavering pursuit of a destiny free from the greater will. The Snow Witch set is a visual representation of her ethereal nature, her commitment to the path of the dark moon, and her rejection of the golden light of the Erd tree. It is a silent declaration of her intentions, a constant reminder of the profound changes she seeks to bring about in the lands between. This period, marked by Rani's audacious plot, fundamentally reshapes the future of the lands between, setting the stage for a cosmic shift in power and the potential dawn of a new age, an age governed not by the Golden Order, but by the cold, distant light of the stars. The shadowy machinations of Rani's conspiracy, culminating in the Night of Black Knives and the shattering of the Elden Ring, set the stage for a new era, one defined by chaos and the desperate struggle for power. Now, in the present day, as the lands between groan under the weight of a broken order, a new protagonist emerges. This is the era of the Tarnished's quest, a journey that begins with a singular purpose, to become the Elden Lord. Our story, and indeed the player's journey, commences abruptly at the Chapel of Anticipation. Here, the Tarnished, a warrior once exiled from the lands between and now resurrected, awakens to a world both breathtaking and perilous. Their initial guide, a spectral finger maiden, offers a fleeting glimpse of purpose before the Tarnished is unceremoniously and seemingly fatally cast into the sea. This early setback, however, is merely a prologue. The true beginning lies in the stranded graveyard, where the Tarnished is resurrected, a testament to their unique status. It is here that they encounter White Mask Vara, a figure clad in a distinctive white mask and robes, who immediately mocks their maidenless status. This seemingly innocuous taunt highlights a critical aspect of the lands between. The guidance of a finger maiden is typically essential for a Tarnished to gain strength and ascend to Elden Lord. Vara, with his cryptic pronouncements and unsettling demeanor, points the Tarnished towards Stormvale Castle, the domain of Godric the Grafted, suggesting it as the first step on their arduous path. The absence of a finger maiden is a significant hurdle, one that is soon addressed. Just outside the stranded graveyard, at a site of grace, these luminous points of rest and guidance, scattered throughout the lands between, the Tarnished is approached by Melina, a mysterious young woman with one eye closed and a spectral, ethereal presence. Melina offers an accord. In exchange for guiding her to the foot of the Erd tree, the colossal golden tree that dominates the landscape. She will serve as the Tarnished's finger maiden, granting them the ability to level up by converting runes, the fragmented essence of the Elden Ring, and the primary form of currency and experience that's in this world, into strength. This pivotal agreement also bestows upon the Tarnished the ability to summon Torrent, a spectral steed whose agility and speed prove invaluable for traversing the vast and dangerous landscapes of the lands between. Torrent, with his double jump and ability to appear and disappear at will, becomes an indispensable companion, allowing for swift escapes and efficient exploration, fundamentally changing the pace and scope of the Tarnished's adventure. With Melina's guidance and Torrent's aid, the Tarnished truly begins their journey, venturing into Limgrave, the verdant, windswept region that serves as the initial open world area. Limgrave is a land of contrasts, from the serene coastal cliffs to the shadowed depths of its catacombs. Here, the Tarnished encounters a variety of early challenges, including the imposing Tree Sentinel, a formidable mounted knight who serves as an early optional boss, designed to teach players the importance of strategic combat and knowing when to retreat. Exploration of Limgrave reveals numerous optional dungeons, such as the various caves and tunnels that house minor bosses and valuable loot, and the ubiquitous minor Erd trees, guarded by challenging foes and offering potent wondrous physic tears. These early encounters, while seemingly minor, are crucial for the Tarnished to hone their combat skills, understand the game's mechanics, and begin to uncover the fragmented lore of the lands between through item descriptions and environmental storytelling. The sense of discovery, of stumbling upon hidden paths and forgotten ruins, is a core tenet of this initial exploration. The ultimate goal in Limgrave, as directed by Vara, is Stormvale Castle, a massive, imposing fortress perched atop a craggy peak. Within its crumbling walls resides Godric the Grafted, a grotesque demigod who has literally grafted the limbs of others onto his own body in a desperate attempt to gain strength. His castle is a maze of fortified courtyards, treacherous ramparts, and hidden passages, guarded by a legion of soldiers, monstrous dogs, and even a monstrous grafted scion. The Tarnished must navigate these dangers, often finding alternative routes or utilizing stealth before finally confronting Godric in a brutal, multi-phase battle. Defeating Godric the Grafted is a monumental achievement, marking the acquisition of the Tarnished's first great rune. These are the shards of the shattered Elden Ring, imbued with immense power and held by the various demigods. Godric's great rune, the great rune of the Grafted, signifies a significant step towards becoming Elden Lord. Along with the great rune, the Tarnished also obtains the Remembrance of the Grafted, a powerful item that can be exchanged for unique weapons or spells at the Round Table Hold, a sanctuary for Tarnished and other denizens of the lands between, accessible through Melina's power. From the windswept plains of Limgrave, the Tarnished's journey leads them north into Liurnia of the Lakes. This region presents a stark contrast, a vast flooded landscape dominated by shimmering waters and the imposing spires of the Raya Lucarian Academy. Navigation through Liurnia is often by horseback, as much of the land is submerged, with islands of solid ground and ancient ruins poking through the water. The Academy itself, a grand institution of glintstone sorcery, is a formidable stronghold guarded by magical constructs and powerful sorcerers. Entry to the Academy requires a specific item, the glintstone key, which is often hidden or guarded by a challenging foe, emphasizing the non-linear nature of exploration. Within the Academy, the Tarnished faces a gauntlet of magical challenges, from enchanted puppets to powerful sorcerers, all culminating in the confrontation with Renala, Queen of the Full Moon. Renala, once a revered scholar and the consort of Radagon, now presides over the Academy in a state of perpetual mourning and magical power. Her defeat grants the Tarnished the great rune of the full moon, a symbol of her arcane mastery, and the remembrance of the full moon queen, offering further unique rewards. It is important to note that throughout Limgrave, Lernia, and indeed the entirety of the lands between, a wealth of secret items are discovered not through direct narrative progression, but through the Tarnished's diligent exploration of optional areas and the defeat of hidden bosses. These could range from the discovery of the bell bearings in various caves and catacombs, which expand the inventory of merchants at the Round Table Hold, to the uncovering of legendary armaments in obscure corners of the map. The Weeping Peninsula, for instance, an optional southern region of Limgrave, offers early access to powerful talismans and unique spirit ashes, while the various catacombs and heroes' graves scattered across Liurnia hide numerous powerful incantations, sorceries, and unique armor sets. Caelid, despite its blighted nature, also harbors its own share of hidden treasures, often guarded by particularly virulent foes or found within the ruins of its former glory. These optional areas and their rewards are not merely side content, but integral to the player's power progression and their understanding of the deeper lore, often revealing tragic backstories or forgotten factions. The careful examination of every nook and cranny, the willingness to venture off the beaten path, is consistently rewarded with potent tools and deeper insights into the shattered world. From the magical serenity of Liurnia, the Tarnished's path takes a grim turn, leading them eastward into Caelid. This blighted wasteland is a stark and horrifying testament to the Scarlet Rot, a devastating affliction that has turned the land into a festering crimson nightmare. The very air pulses with decay, and the landscape is dominated by grotesque creatures mutated by the rot, from giant dogs and crows to the terrifying lesser kindred of rot. The primary objective in Caelid is to confront General Radon, one of the most powerful and tragic demigods, who has been driven mad by the Scarlet Rot and now wanders the desolate plains. Before the climactic confrontation, the Tarnished must participate in the Radon Festival, a unique event held in Redmane Castle, a formidable fortress located on the eastern coast of Caelid. This festival, overseen by Castellan Jaren, is a somber affair, a gathering of warriors and champions who have come to put an end to Radon's suffering in a glorious, if desperate, battle. The festival serves as a narrative device to explain why so many powerful figures are gathered in one place, and why the Tarnished is able to face Radon alongside a host of summoned allies. The battle against Starscourge Radon is an epic, multi-phase encounter, often cited as one of the most memorable and challenging boss fights in the game. Radon, despite his madness, retains immense power, wielding two colossal greatswords and capable of summoning meteors from the sky. His defeat, a hard-won victory, grants the Tarnished the great rune of the Star Scourge, a symbol of his immense strength and tragic fate, and the remembrance of the Star Scourge, further expanding the Tarnished's arsenal of powerful items. The defeat of Radon also has significant environmental consequences, as the celestial body he held aloft is released, crashing into the lands between and creating new access points to hidden areas. With three great runes in hand, the Tarnished continues their ascent, journeying to the Altus Plateau, a high altitude region bathed in perpetual golden light. Access to the Altus Plateau is typically gained through the Grand Lift of Dectus, requiring the collection of two Dectus medallion halves, or via an alternative, more perilous path through the ruin-strewn precipice. The Altus Plateau is a land of rolling hills, ancient ruins, and the golden glow of the Erd Tree, which now looms even larger on the horizon. Here, the enemies become significantly more powerful, and the challenges more complex. The plateau serves as a gateway to the royal capital, Lendel, a magnificent, sprawling city built around the base of the Erd Tree. Lendel is a labyrinthine metropolis filled with formidable knights, powerful mages, and the remnants of a once glorious civilization. Navigating its intricate streets and towering structures requires careful planning and skilled combat. Deep within the royal capital, the Tarnished faces Morgott, the Omen King. Morgott, a tragic figure afflicted with the Omen Curse, is a fierce defender of the Erd Tree and the Golden Order, despite being an outcast himself. His fight is a test of endurance and skill, as he wields a variety of holy attacks and summons powerful spectral weapons. Defeating Morgott the Omen King is another crucial step, yielding his great rune, the Great Rune of the Omen King, and the Remembrance of the Omen King. With 4 great runes now collected, the Tarnished is truly approaching the pinnacle of their quest. The collection of great runes from defeated demigods across the lands between is the primary objective that signifies the Tarnished's progress towards becoming Elden Lord. Each great rune represents a significant portion of the shattered Elden Ring's power, and their acquisition is a testament to the Tarnished's growing strength and determination. Beyond the demigods previously mentioned, other great runes await, held by figures such as Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy in Mount Gelmir, and Millennia, Blade of Miquella, deep within the Halig Tree, each presenting unique and formidable challenges. The path to becoming Elden Lord is paved with the blood of these powerful beings, each defeat bringing the Tarnished closer to their ultimate destiny. Finally, as the Tarnished delves deeper into the mysteries of the Erd Tree and the shattered Golden Order, they eventually confront the foundational figures of this world. The remembrance of Godfrey, first Elden Lord, is acquired after defeating his spectral form, Godfrey, first Elden Lord, Spirit, and later his true form, Huaralu, Warrior, within Lendel. This remembrance represents the power and legacy of the first consort to Queen Marika. Similarly, the remembrance of Radagon of the Golden Order is obtained after defeating Radagon himself